Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your fallen angel back with another video. Today, we will be going over Nikola Tesla's original plan in 1875. Before we get started, like and subscribe. Also, follow us on Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, things of that nature. Now, let's begin. Tesla's original vision in his 1870s student days of his ideal flying machine was of an electro-pulsive one, the realization of which is why he said he originally entered the field of electrical science in 1875 in the first place. This was the problem which he had assigned to himself as his main lifelong work. Originally, anticipating that the electrical power needs for an electro-propulsive craft would be too great for an onboard power plant, since his ship was to be devoid of sustaining planes, he initially embarked on deploying his wireless transmission of power system, so as to transmit the anticipated power needed from the ground-based power generators and stations. Some of these earlier Tesla ideas turned out to be unnecessary for his flying machine, so he turned them for intended commercial purposes, since his conception of the ether was of a relatively low density one, and his conception of the electromagnetic force not nearly so much stronger than the gravitational one. His later discovery that his prior anticipation of greater electrical power needs than actually required led to changes in his electro-propulsive craft and produced plenty of surplus spin-off technology. So when we talk about electromagnetivity, we have to understand how it counterparts with the ether time-space, right? This string theory, this idea of neutrinos going through time-space is also what Tesla understood. During the 1920s, at a time when he was in a great need of money to complete his electro-propulsion ship, he unsuccessfully attempted to interest the US government in some of the surplus spin-off technology in an unpublished article, prepared but never published. Tesla said, "We should push the development of flying machines and wireless transmission of energy without an instant delay and with all the power and resources of the nation." Imagine that, guys. Wireless energy. The immediate association here is between flying machines, not aeroplanes, and wireless transmission of energy. Tesla had piles of patents which produced him no money because the Morgans and Rockefellers had declared them off limits. No one could borrow money from the banks to put one of these systems into practice, and anyone who was foolish enough to do so on their own money could expect the wrath of the gods to come down on them like the lightning bolt from Zeus. Due to his imminent discovery that his onboard power needs would be so great, and a failure to interest anyone in the development of his wireless energy transmission system, Tesla obtained a patent in 1913 on a remarkable turbine he had invented in 1909. This was probably in view of encouraging developments and awareness which showed that the electromagnetic interaction is 40 times stronger than the gravitational interaction, according to Hendrik Lorentz. The electrical attraction force is 1,039 times stronger than the gravitational attraction force. The change in Tesla's strategy seems to have occurred between the 1915 test of an electro-propulsion missile using wireless energy projected to it by a power beam from the ground, and on his birthday in 1934 announcement. These new developments were probably spurred on by the mother of invention, since without a wireless energy system, the prior conception would rather be useless. The power monopolists could fight that off forever, so Tesla was left to his own devices, unable to count on anyone else but himself, since no one would invest in that. The earlier misconceptions were still somewhat in Tesla's mind when he developed the turbine commercially under the Tesla Propulsion Company slogan, 20 horsepower per pound, with the undisclosed intention of also using the turbine to drive one of his specifically designed high-frequency alternators to power the ship. After having developed such a light and powerful turbine, which could turn upwards of 30,000 RPM with a 20-pound unit producing over 200 brake horsepower on gasoline. He also designed and received a patent in 1928 for a new kind of VTOL type, propeller-driven airplane, to be powered by two turbines mounted in the tandem, which would counteract the torque of the prop and eliminate the need for stabilizing props that helicopters have on the back of fuselages. This aircraft, if built, would have had a superior weight to horsepower ratio, perhaps 3 to 1, and would have been very fast in level flight, taking off vertically. Tesla, on seeing the inefficient use of the heavier aircraft engines then in use, and the requirements of a more cumbersome aircraft with greater wing area, apparently wished to commercialize on the turbine by designing and patenting the new airplane, which specifically used his turbine to raise needed capital to complete his more expensive electric propulsion project. In his experiences with prior patents, he had learned that a patent would be worthless unless he could get the needed capital to carry the project out before the patent period expired, and that the disclosure in a patent would allow others to do so only 17 years after a patent might be granted to him, during which time his invention could languish for lack of funding on his part because the monolithic financial interests were set against him. While in the initial stages of development, Tesla seemed quite unaware of the true powers of the force, until his early field tests of 1915 proved that it was tremendous. In the years 1893 and 1894, Tesla had completely worked out his dynamic theory of gravity. That is, at least in theory. Inherent to the theory was his electric propulsion system, yet in the formative and theoretical stages. To publish his theory, however, would have been tantamount to disclosing the basic technology as well, which would have allowed his competitors with the money and resources to complete and take credit for the most important work of Tesla's life and the greatest invention of mankind. Tesla lacked the necessary money and could not raise it. Now imagine you creating the most magnificent thing and your life's work, your years and years of dedication, tears, blood, sweat, years of dedication can just be taken from you by someone else who has more money to just not only promote it, but make it even better. This is what Tesla was going through. He could not protect himself by patent until he completed and tested a working model of large enough scale to impress the aircraft industry and the government. Fatefully, it was during this time of greatest financial need, when he still had the physical stamina to carry the project out, that he was run and ragged by the bill collections and foreclosures at the behest of J.P. Morgan and his cohorts, all with the intent of crushing Tesla because he kept coming up with a new electrical power system, which made his prior systems obsolete. Since the systems would have ruined Morgan and Rockefeller, and since any invention which Tesla marketed for great profit would have allowed him the resources to build his energy systems, he had to be crushed. Tesla never seemed to fully realize that Morgan's pseudo-philanthropism was nothing more than a scheme to compromise Tesla's contract with himself, and a way of falsely inducing Tesla's reliance on others rather than on his self-reliance. We really reiterate this concept of falsely inducing Tesla's reliance on others rather than himself reliance. We see this a lot in current society. The government wants people to be super reliant on the government and a lack of self-reliance. They don't want you to grow your own food. They don't want you to use your own electricity. They don't want you to do anything for yourself unless it's government regulated. This treatment set Tesla back emotionally, as well as financially and technically, and reduced him at one point to a heap of groveling nerves, literally begging Morgan to make it good on his promises to no avail. But like all truly tragic figures, there was a reassertion of the tragic hero's excellent and untarnished authorian powers, before he passed heroically into the oblivion of death, as his discoveries, like the sword of Excalibur, sank beneath the waters of the lake of national security lies, to the inurement of corporate greed, coercion, and extortion. The only power that Tesla seemed to have left was that of withholding his discoveries from the world, to protect his secrets from the proliferating paws of the looters, unless he could receive the compensation and credit which he deserved. But that didn't matter, because they got it all before his corpse was cool, and never paid him so much as a dime for his trouble and efforts. After becoming aware of his true power of the force, 100 billion thousand trillion times stronger than gravity, Tesla began to pursue the idea of onboard power system for a manned craft to be used for transportation, with this wireless transmission of power to be regulated to be a robotic, remote-controlled electric propulsion missile for use in warfare, with electric power to be transmitted to the missiles from the ground. After a long period of silence following his field testing of a working model of the electrically propelled missile in 1915, Tesla began referring to the propelling force as tremendous. In later announcements, which began in the 30s, tremendous does not mean something which reacts feebly to barely get off the ground, but to something that which arises with great and astounding force. Such is the way I saw a flying saucer perform in 1953, only 10 years after Tesla's death. If tremendous meant something like an airplane or conventional rocket, as CIA or NASA misinformationists have idiotically attempted to misconstrue, then what would be the word to describe a force which propels a flying saucer at 9,000 miles per hour in 3 seconds? The words means of propulsion used by Tesla in 1940 interview with William L. Lawrence of the New York Times are the utmost importance for those interested in understanding both the misinformational conspiracy as well as the scanty documentation of Tesla's concealed discoveries. In their text, these words denoted an onboard electric propulsion means to be used on his ideal flying machine, either manned or unmanned, controlled mechanically, by a pilot on board or remotely by wireless energy, by a controller from the ground. It did not refer to projectile, such as a pellet or bullet, which had no propulsion system, and was merely repelled by a gun of some sort, and it did not refer to any kind of airplane, hence flying machine, since the machine was to have no wings, ailerons, propellers, or outer appurtenances of any kind. Propulsion here means an onboard system for perpetuation of motion by electromagnetic means supplied with the electrical power by either onboard generator or by electrical energy, and control signals transmitted by power beam from the ground. The idea of interplanetary travel appealed to Tesla, with the idea that so as long as the electrical energy for the propulsion could be transmitted from the Earth, a spaceship would require no fuel tanks. In a letter to his friend and financial supporter B.A. Behend in the 1930s, Tesla refers cryptically to his electropropulsive discovery. What I shall accomplish by the other invention, I came specially to see you about. I do not dare to tell you. This is stated in all seriousness. Tesla apparently was inferring a plan to discover other worlds in outer space with his electrical machines. Tesla realized that all solid bodies contain electrical content, and that they behave as resonant cavities, which interact electromagnetically with rapidly varying electrostatic forces and ether to determine their gravitational interactions and movements in space. These theories were tested and confirmed to some degree in the 1899 Colorado Springs experiments. The U.S. government never gave Tesla the time of day, and his great electropropulsive discovery slipped into the eager hands of the Nazi elite when Werner von Braun acquired and began development of the P-2 project at Los Alamos, New Mexico in 1936, taking the project back to Germany in the fall of 1937, where it was developed in Peenemünde in the Baltic, until these secrets and others were traded to American corporations and the U.S. government in exchange under Operation Paperclip, just after armistice for amnesty for many war criminals, along with any agreement for several thousands of people to work for the United States government and American corporations. Anyone having important technical information was protected. So guys, this is just an introduction on Nikola's original plan in 1875. We will continue this series further on, but like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. Feel free to check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. It has been your fallen angel, and I'm out.